Layer 2 has some problems. Welcome to today's video, where we'll be predominantly focusing on talking about the issues that I found while playing through Deepwoken's Layer 2. After going through it the first time, I've played it relatively extensively and would like to say that I'm pretty qualified to talk on the topic. But that being said, if I mess anything up in here, please let me know in the comments. I also want to make it clear that I am not saying that Layer 2 is bad, not by any stretch of the imagination. This is one of those situations where I actually think it's really good. It just could be a lot better. Our starting point is really high, but the highest heights that we can reach are even higher than where we're at right now. There's a lot of people out there who take both Deepwoken and stuff like Layer 2 way for granted, and I never in a million years want to be one of those people. I can say with extreme comfortability that the Scion of Etheron fight is something that I will likely never experience in another Roblox game ever again. And no amount of people going, "It's too easy," can take away the sheer spectacle that that fight provides the first time you get to it. Anyways, enough glazing Deepwoken. Let's talk about the problems. And we're gonna start with the very first one, which is the light hook. The light hook is so weird to me, and we're gonna talk about why. In my opinion, the light hook is flawed because, well, it completely removes any risk or challenge from what should be the riskiest area to traverse in the entire game. Not only that, but for those who have to use it when they get killed, it's a colossal waste of time having to wait every single time you use it. It goes back and forth on how this works, but as far as I understand it, if you use the light hook and die, or you're at any point below 10 minutes and you don't beat Chaser, it will go back to 10 minutes as the default. And in order to get back to your 20 minutes that you initially had, you need to wait 20 minutes, as every 1 minute in the overworld is 30 seconds back on your light hook. That being said, nobody in their right mind is going to be able to clear a reasonable amount of Layer 2 in 10 minutes, so if you're somebody who is in need of the help of the light hook, well, you might as well just not have it at all, and that means you're going to be waiting around for 20 minutes. In all likelihood, if you're someone who needs the light hook and was killed in Layer 2, you're not going to be very keen on wandering around Layer 1 with the potential risks of getting killed, because Layer 1 itself is extremely dangerous. So this means either AFKing around Castle Light or turning off the game and coming back later, which from a design perspective is just a whole lot of question marks. It makes no sense. And in terms of later game players who don't necessarily need the light hook, they're gonna use it just for the safety net, and it means that you can clear the entirety of Layer 2 Floor 1 with zero risk at all. You can get through the entire thing, and if you do happen to screw up, there's no risk. Which just, like, that makes no sense when this should be the risky area of the game, right? I think a solution here is twofold. There's probably plenty of solutions out there, so don't take mine as law. But personally, I don't think that the light hook should expire at all until you enter Floor 2. But I think it should only work if you manually activate it. That means no more automatic get out of jail free card if you get sent off the edge or killed by a mob. I might even go as far to say that it should be unusable in combat, since this would remove the get out of jail free card nature in every single run of Floor 1. But it would remain as a way for players who get lost in Layer 2 to restart at any given point and go back in without having to wait around in Castle Light all day. Like I said, there's probably 100 solutions here, some of them better than mine, but as it stands, it's just poorly designed. Adds an unnecessarily safety net for players who are longtime players, and is almost just a colossal waste of time for lower end players. It just feels weird. The next issue we're going to be talking about with Layer 2 is in terms of timers. This kind of plays into the light hook issue from earlier, but seriously, what was up with the developers and timers when they were making Layer 2? In total, there's 4 separate timers. The light hook, parasites, Floor 2's time dilation, and Floor 2's collapse. Do you think that's enough? All of these timers stacked on top of each other start to make Layer 2 feel like it was expressly designed to be speedran, which contradicts the carefully crafted and interesting world that they were clearly going for. Let's go in order. We already spoke about the light hook, so we'll skip that and get right to the parasites. I don't have a huge issue with the parasites, as once you learn Layer 2, they become sort of a non-issue, and you can also run things like the Survivalist boon in order to make them less effective. But one thing I thought that was interesting about them is that there's really nothing you can directly obtain in Layer 2 to counteract them, which is strange because the other hazards of Layer 2 you can, for the most part anyway. With the fog, you can obtain Etheron's Gaze, which you need. And once you get that, it makes life way easier since you're able to look around and see things without the fog. You're also able to traverse the entire realm much easier when you obtain the Union Hook. But with the parasites, well, you just kind of have to deal with them. It strikes me as double odd considering that the Ignition Union has the technology to fight them off. So I find it incredibly hard to believe that they wouldn't have been working on some way to make their lamps portable? I'm just spitballing here, but I think it'd be a cool addition if, after you obtain the Union Hook, Alpha tells you to venture out and, I don't know, obtain Bounder Claws, some other goal, who knows, it could be anything. And if you do, he'll let you test his mobile lantern, which would either heavily reduce or outright disable the potency of parasites. It just strikes me as odd that you have this timer mechanic here and you can't do anything about it, and it's a bit of a nuisance and prevents, I'm sure, a lot of people from exploring the rest of the zone. Now, Floor 2's time dilation may very well be something a lot of players nowadays just simply never see, which is almost sort of part of the problem. In essence, you have 45 minutes to complete Floor 2. Every 15 minutes, the screen will fade to white and send you back to the start of the dungeon, but it should be noted that the obelisk that you activated before it did that will remain activated when you're sent back. If this effect occurs 3 times, you die instantly and your character is wiped. Now, the question I have to ask is, well, why? Here's the deal. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is gonna get as far as Layer 2, Floor 2 without using some sort of guide to help them. Not when the stakes are as high as if you die, you lose your entire character. People have already mapped out the safest route through Floor 2, and it involves you fighting 0 enemies. Literally 0. You run past and ignore every single enemy up until the Scion of Etheron, because stopping would be a waste of time and risk getting sent back to the start. There's a library puzzle that's clearly supposed to take trial and error and such to figure out, but I've got no clue how it works, and I don't care to. It's not been randomized, and the code for it is online. You just blow through the thing in a minute and a half. Not only that, but the video tutorial that I watched on Layer 2 advocated for clipping through the walls in order to just clip straight through the library puzzle. Why is that normalized? There's seriously no way that this is how you guys intended it, but I also can't see any universe in which case you couldn't have seen this coming. If you put in a puzzle and the code is never randomized, then like 1% of people are ever going to do the puzzle. Not only that, but once you speedrun all the obelisks, the timer stops. Okay, so what the hell is the point of the timer to begin with? Because the only people who would ever have reasonably been killed by the timer are people that got this far without a guide, or people who were playing Layer 2 directly after it was released. In the current day and age, the time dilation timer only serves to fuck over the extremely small minority of people who have the massive balls to try to learn things for themselves. That's just fucked up. And then finally, the collapse timer, I really don't have any issue with. It's pretty well executed. It adds a lot of tension to the end of the dungeon, and I wouldn't touch it. Moving on from the timers, we're talking about NPC traps and insta-kills. This one, once again, plays into the guide point from earlier, but I just want you to watch something first. Thankfully, I decided to go in on a throwaway slot because I figured something like this would happen. But like, what the fuck? As far as I know, Deepwoken has a fair few dialogue traps or insta-kills. And in the overworld, it's kinda stupid, but I wouldn't quite split hairs over it because, well, if you die, you might just lose a life. If it sends you to the depths, it's not unreasonably difficult to get out, so it's just sort of a minor nuisance. In Layer 2, on the other hand, well, it's downright sadistic, and there's no other way I can sum it up. In total, I think there's 1 potential insta-kill and 2 trap dialogues in Layer 2. You can be instantly killed by Miserables if you talk to him and attempt to make a deal with him without the sufficient medallions. This, I mean, it's slightly forgivable, to be honest, and apparently in the past he would just kill you if you changed your mind, which I think has been changed, but whether or not that's true is really hazy at best. Either way, if you were stupid enough to pick the option that you were going to give him medallions without medallions, I don't know if you deserve to die instantly, but that would be a pretty questionable decision. In terms of traps, if you speak to the NPC right before the nest corridor, they'll knock you in, which isn't necessarily an instant death, but it does ragdoll you into a pit of bounders, so, you know, that's kind of fucked up. And then, of course, there's the most egregious one that I think they should just rip straight out because, well, why the fuck is it here? And that's the stun lock insta-kill that I already showed. When it comes to these things on a general level, I can easily draw similarities to the timer instances from above. Nobody who does their homework is ever going to get caught by these. But for a curious player who doesn't know, it can be nothing short of a death sentence. Sure, if you've been talking to NPCs up until this point, they'll tell you that the city's Kiersguard aren't friendly. But not only can you speak with a Kiersguard that's friendly on the cliffs before this one, but if they weren't supposed to be friendly, then why the hell can you even begin dialogue with this one? It's double fucked because not only can you run past him, not drawing any aggro, but right behind him is a human who warns you about the city's artillery. Alright then, how the fuck did this asshole get past? Oh, right, he just ran without a care in the world, just like all the other guide-following players. It just has no reason to exist, and solely serves as a beginner's trap for not using a guide in a game notoriously difficult to not use a guide for. Anyways, I could talk about this all day, we gotta move on. The next section that I want to speak about is the loot. Layer 2's loot is super weird to me, because some of it I think is absolutely fantastic, and some of it is borderline confusing. In terms of positives, I think that the medallion system for Floor 2 is great, and I don't have really anything bad to say about it. I also think that the legendary weapon drops and the like are also great, and finding legendaries far more commonly in this endgame high-risk area feels, well, correct. Where the loot starts to fall apart, however, is, well, everything else. Quite frankly, chests are filled with uninteresting, non-Layer 2 specific garbage, and it feels off-putting. Going into Layer 2, I fully expected the Kiersguard to be the main motif, and in fairness, when it comes to weapons, it is. There's a Kiersguard version of every weapon type, which is fantastic. On the clothing front, however, well, we faceplant. There are 2, count them, 2 blueprints for outfits you can get down here. And they're technically not even Layer 2 specific, nor are they even remotely rare to find when doing Layer 2 runs. One of the outfits, in my opinion, should be the one setting the standard for the kind of cool shit that you would find down here. The Ignition Deep Delver outfit allows you to parry otherwise unparryable attacks at the cost of your armor. As an endgame piece of equipment, this is so cool and feels super special. Unfortunately, as I said, this is the exception rather than the rule. The other master outfit's innate talent is pretty lame, regardless of how helpful people may or may not tell me it is in the comments. And then, outside of that, well, that's it. None of the modular equipment armors appear to be exclusive at all, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And none of it appears to have anything else cool or special about it. It just blows my mind that in terms of equipment, we can have stuff like the Immortal Helm, which prevents you from getting knocked down when you hit 0, that's casually and easily obtainable in Ministria, and yet all the crap down here is just sort of generic garbage. Like, I just don't see how we got an entire race of people without a single clothing or outfit piece inspired by them. It's so weird. On the front of other cool loot like deep gems and enchant stones, I think the general drop rate for these feels very lackluster if you aren't directly going out of your way in terms of beating the bosses or doing the Gale Wax secret on floor 1. If you farm the Gale Wax shrine over and over again, you'll get plenty of enchant stones, and if you're going all the way through floor 2, you'll get a boatload of them via the medallions. But it just feels odd that the just consensus of fighting enemies and actually clearing most of the floor is secondary to just doing the secrets and defeating the bosses. You get just far more rewards, so it seems way more profitable to just speedrun Gale Wax, do both the bosses and reset, than to actually go through the floor itself, which feels odd. If it were me, I would balance it out more, so that way maybe the drops on the bosses aren't as crazy, but the general drops that you get from normal chests is more reasonable. That way people are encouraged to actually interact with the rest of the floor instead of just speed running through all of it. As a final note on loot, especially if the light hook changes that I proposed were implemented, I really don't understand why using the ignition drill takes away all of the stuff that you got. I think that if players want to go into layer 2, get a bunch of loot, and then leave because they don't have faith in themselves to beat Chaser, I just don't see why they should lose everything that they got there. It seems extremely arbitrary and just, well, shouldn't exist. The next section, I want to talk about Firfire. Firfire gets its very own section because holy is this place a missed opportunity. You have an area populated by the very last sane remnant of their kind. A group of people that we don't see anywhere else in the entire game, and it's completely barren. One quest, and that's it. This might be a hot take, but I think Firfire should be something of a mini town, reminiscent of the cities on the surface. Maybe give it a campfire equivalent, an antiquarian, and most importantly, I think, an exclusive blacksmith. In my ideal world, this blacksmith would be the only way to craft those potential Kiersgaard-inspired outfits from earlier, which could encourage people to run Layer 2 on subsequent builds if the outfits are made worthwhile when they otherwise might just ignore Layer 2 completely. I just think it would be far more interesting to encourage players to stick around and explore these areas to their fullest, rather than the current state of borderline speedrunning. At the end of the day, as always, I'm just sort of spitballing ideas, but it's hard to deny that Firfire could have been a really cool experience, and when you get there, it is, but then you actually explore the town and you realize that, well, there's just absolutely nothing there for you. It's nothing short of a footnote, despite being probably something that should hold a lot more weight than it does. This cool-ass area is completely wasted, the concept is completely wasted, and I really hope at some point, even if it's not the things that I'm directly looking for, the developers realize that this area is a wasted opportunity and make it, well, less of that. Because in its current state, Firfire is relegated to an over-glorified door opener every single Layer 2 run, and that, well, it feels like shit. And with that, we're moving on to my closing thoughts. As I said at the start, I think Layer 2 is really cool, and I enjoyed my time with it a lot. I just think that things could have been handled a little bit better. As a minor nitpick, there was one thing I want to tack on to the end here that also bothered me, and that's the graceful flame mantra. Why in the world of unholy hell can you not use this in Layer 2? If there's a specific reason that's been listed by the developers, I'd be really curious to know, because it feels pretty terrible to invest into an upgrade that directly says, this will make your flame work in the depths, and then you get to an area where it seemingly should have a way higher chance of maintaining a flame compared to, well, literally underwater, and you can't use it, and I don't know why. Were they just really desperate to make it so that way you couldn't regenerate your armor in Layer 2 of the depths? I don't know. I really legitimately don't have a clue. but it feels really, really odd and strange because, well, this is one attunement that can use one ability that's literally specifically designed to be used in the depths, and you can't use it here. I don't get it. Regardless, I think I'm starting to ramble, so we should probably wrap things up. How do you guys feel about Layer 2? I know based on the comments of my videos from previously that there's a fair few of you who still haven't gotten here, but for those of you who have, do you recognize that you're just speedrunning through it over and over again? And do you like it that way, or would you rather have a Layer 2 that's more involved and encourages exploration rather than speedrunning? Let me know. I might be in the complete massive minority on this one. Who knows? With that though, I'm wrapping up here. So if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day and night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.